Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you thought about black seed or anise as key players in sustainable farming? Most likely, these aren't crops you see headlining agricultural news, but their importance is rising fast. Across Syria and the broader Mediterranean, black seed, also called Nigella, sativa, and anise, or Pimpinella anisum, have deep roots in traditional medicine, culinary arts, and even international export markets. You might be wondering, why the sudden global interest? Well, both crops are loaded with phytochemicals. Think of them as nature's toolkit of medicinal compounds. Black seed contains thymoquinone, a bioactive molecule known for its anti-inflammatory properties. Anise, meanwhile, is prized for shikimic acid, the base for antiviral drugs, and anahol, which gives it that signature licorice flavor. Beyond health, there's an economic story here. With international demand for herbal remedies and natural spices growing, Syria's farmers have found new income streams cultivating these crops. And because both crops thrive with relatively low input costs, they're accessible even for small-scale producers. Now you might be thinking, but aren't these just niche plants? In fact, data shows black seed and anise fields cover thousands of hectares in Syria alone, with yields supporting both local consumption and export. So, as we dive into the science of boosting their productivity, keep in mind, these aren't just specialty herbs, they're cornerstones in the shift towards sustainable, profitable agriculture in the region. Let's set the scene. Imagine two neighboring black seed fields. One is treated with liquid organic fertilizer, the other with vermicompost. Which will flourish? This was the central question behind a recent field trial at Damascus University. First, let's break down the jargon. Liquid organic fertilizer is essentially a concentrated, plant-based solution. Think of it as a nutrient smoothie for crops, packed with bioavailable nitrogen and potassium. Vermicompost, on the other hand, is compost made by earthworms, rich in organic matter and beneficial microbes. Why compare them? Well, each fertilizer brings unique benefits. Liquid fertilizer is quickly absorbed, giving crops an instant boost, much like an energy drink. Vermicompost builds long-term soil health, improving structure and water retention. Now, you might ask, don't chemical fertilizers outperform both? Not necessarily. Organic options help maintain soil carbon levels, a key indicator of soil health, while also reducing pollution and input costs. So, the real challenge? Balancing quick crop growth with long-term sustainability. These trials are about finding that sweet spot where yield meets healthy soil biology. Let's talk stats, because in agriculture, numbers tell the story. Researchers used a randomized complete block design, or RCBD, a method that controls variability across the field, much like how clinical trials randomize patients. This setup helps ensure that differences in crop performance are due to the fertilizer, not quirks in soil or weather. But what exactly did they measure? Key yield traits: number of primary branches, plant height, fruit capsules, 1,000 seed weight, seed yield per plant, biological yield, and harvest index. Each of these is a proxy for productivity or plant health. Here's where genetic correlation comes in. Imagine two traits, like seed yield and plant height. If they're genetically correlated, improving one often boosts the other a bit, like working on your endurance and seeing your speed increase too. Researchers calculated these coefficients to pinpoint which traits are best for selection in breeding programs. Now you might be thinking, that sounds complicated. Enter a principal component analysis, or PCAA statistical tool that simplifies data by highlighting the traits that explain most of the variation. Think of PCA as a filter that distills a complex dataset down to its most important ingredients. So, success here isn't just about higher yield, it's about identifying stable, genetically linked traits that can guide future crop improvement making, breeding faster, smarter, and more targeted. Let's get to the punchline. What did the research actually find? Across both black seed and anise crops, applying liquid organic fertilizer led to significant gains. For black seed, the number of primary branches jumped by 10.74%, and seed yield per plant rose by 22.45% compared to vermicompost. In anise, yield increases were even more dramatic: seed yield per hectare up by 51.52%, and biological yield per plant up by 62.66%. Why such a difference? It comes down to nutrient availability. Liquid fertilizer supplied more readily absorbed nitrogen and potassium, two macronutrients, essential for cell division and photosynthesis. Imagine potassium as a plant's hydration coach, enhancing drought resistance and nutrient transport, while nitrogen is the builder, driving chlorophyll production and leafy growth. But the science dug deeper. Genetic correlation and PCA results showed that seed yield, biological yield, and 1,000 seed weight are the most reliable indicators for selection. These traits clustered within the first principal component, meaning they're the best predictors of overall productivity. Now, you might be asking, can these results guide future breeding and farm management? Absolutely. By focusing on these key traits, breeders and farmers can select the most promising varieties, making every harvest more productive and resilient. So, the takeaway is clear. For black seed and anise, liquid organic fertilizer isn't just a quick fix, it's a strategic tool for long-term yield gains and smart